Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. And today, we are actually going to be doing the first of a series of solo casts. So what I plan on doing over our next 10 episodes is going through the virtual summit journey and why you should also consider going that route as well. Now, the first thing you want to think about is why should you host a virtual summit? So with ours, we recently hosted the Get Published Virtual Summit because we're wanting to help people with sharing their story this year. We mainly work with medical professionals, attorneys, coaches, consultants, speakers, people that want to leverage their book for their business and for their brand. And with 2020 kicking off now I believe we're in mid-February, what I wanted to do was to have something to kick off the year and to build momentum. So that was one of the reasons why we were wanting to do the Get Published Virtual Summit. But with that, there was a lot of planning. And what happened was I was actually hosting one of our podcast episodes. It was with Steve Dimmick, who also had a virtual summit a couple years previous. And after our interview, he said, "Hey, why have you not hosted a virtual summit yet?" Well, my main answer was because I didn't want to deal with all of the technical issues that come with it, the logistics, building the website. And this was roughly, I think it was over the summer, I think it was around July of 2019. And he mentioned, well, there's a new company out. They are called Hey Summit. It is all in one, and they currently have some deals on AppSumo. Now, if you're familiar with AppSumo, they are a company that does offers for different companies in the tech field. And in particular with Hey Summit, what they were doing was they were offering different stacks. And each stack gave you an option in regards to their services. But long story short, I ordered 5 of these stacks. And what it did was it enabled me to have lifetime access to their hosting for a one-time fee. And with purchasing the additional stacks, I was able to have over 12,000 attendees during the lifetime of our summit. So I thought it was a great deal, under $300. So I went ahead and took advantage of that deal. But then, of course, things happen, we get busy, and it was put on the back burner. And I kept thinking, we need to get this going. So what happened was, a couple months later, I developed a game plan to get the summit started. And after talking to a couple people that recently hosted summits, their one main piece of advice was the first thing you need to do is get your speakers. Worry about the technology, worry about all that stuff at the end. The main thing you need to do is to focus on getting speakers and getting the interviews done. So I was like, okay, that's a great idea. So how exactly do I get these interviews recorded? Very simple, using Zoom. Zoom is free. And the great part is you can do video interviews. All you need is to have a webcam and a good one. So the one that I have is actually the Logitech. And I'm trying to remember the exact brand name of it, but it's their webcam. And it's really a good one. I'm trying to remember if it was the X80. But if you just look up Logitech webcam HD 1080p, you're going to see several options. And the nice thing is, it's high definition, it's a great resolution, but the other part of that is it also has a microphone and speakers. So it's a great option. I utilized Zoom once we got the interviews booked. Unfortunately, I already was connected with several people in the industry, and I was able to get interviews done pretty quickly. But one of the things that I did was utilize the power of referrals. Now, what do I mean by that? I would have these great conversations, and at the very end, once they're wrapping up everything, then I'd ask a very simple question. And this was after the interview was done, and that is, hey, I really appreciate you being on our summit. I have a favor to ask. Do you have anyone that you feel would be a great guest to be part of our summit? Now you're probably thinking, well, how did that work out? I started the summit with roughly around 3 to 4 speakers. Just on referrals, we were able to build the rest of our summit where we had 18 speakers total. And the main reason that was effective was because I asked them a very simple question, and that was, who do you know that you feel would be a great guest who would be give a lot of value? And that was the main thing. We wanted speakers that were not going to be pitching their stuff the whole time. We wanted them to have a lot of value and give a lot of insight, and most importantly, help our attendees. And that's what happened. 1 referral turned into 2 referrals. 2 referrals turned into 4, and it just snowballed. And one of the main strategies was, when I would interview those referrals, we'd have a great conversation, and at the end, what did I do? Asked very simply, hey, do you have someone that you recommend that would be a great guest? Now, your goal is to have that speaker also promote their interview with their email list. But what we did was, we did not require that. The main thing that we wanted were good speakers, because we wanted to give as much value as possible. Those that promoted the summit did promote it, and the ones that wouldn't, I was completely fine with that, because the main thing was we wanted to have the highest quality possible. And these are things that we're going to talk about more over the next 2 weeks, because one thing I realized when coming up with this was that we needed to do multiple episodes. And with this current build towards our 500th episode, I wanted to make sure that you guys had a lot of value and could really get into the nitty gritty over the next 2 weeks. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to touch on a lot of different things with this. We're going to talk about, of course, why you should host it. We're going to talk about this being the 3rd pillar of authority. We're going to talk about getting started, choosing your theme, setting up a timeline, recruiting speakers, virtual summit hosting. As you heard, I utilized Hey Summit, admission, free versus paid, which we'll explain later. But there's a lot of things that you have to think about when it comes to the virtual summits. You got to figure out, how's it going to be hosted? And also, do you really want to deal with that? Do you want to hire someone to do this for you? With us, especially with this being our first summit, we wanted to run it as lean as possible. So we already invested the money with Hey Summit. We did not want to spend tens of thousands of dollars, because we've had guests on the summit that have spent upwards of $20,000 on their respective summit. And for our first one, we did not want to do that. We wanted to get through it. I'll be honest with you, we wanted to survive it, because there's just so many different pieces involved. But the main thing is, we wanted to get the experience, because this was always going to be a long-term vision. This was not a one and done. We are going to be doing our Get Published Summit every single year, and we're planning on doing it every single January. Another thing that we're going to talk about is also having the summits and then potentially making them evergreen. So we're going to touch on that as well in our series. So excited about this. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. As I mentioned, we're dedicating 10 episodes, and then we have a very special guest for our 500th episode of the Get Published podcast. So I wish you guys all the best in your author journeys ahead, and look forward to sharing some great stories with you over the next couple of weeks, especially for those that are looking to create their own virtual summits, because it's a lot of hard work, but it's also very rewarding. It's great for business, it's great for connections, and it's excellent for taking your business to the next level. Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.